for my wrongs, I have just begun. Ain't no mercy, ain't no mercy. Got that purple Lamborghini lurking. Ain't no mercy, ain't no mercy. Got that purple Lamborghini lurking. Rose.
Alright, Overwatch players, we're going to take a pretty in-depth look at Reinhardt today. And even if you don't play Reinhardt, I would recommend watching the video all the way through. And the purpose behind that is to better understand your tank. Because the more you understand your tank, the better support that you can give him. And in order to be able to give good support, you need to be able to understand the moves that he's going to make or will make in the near future. Reinhardt requires a lot of team support in order to be effective. And if he's not getting enough team support, he's going to die. So if you have a crappy team, your Reinhardt's going to suck. I don't care how good your Reinhardt is. That's not to say that you're not going to have a bad Reinhardt, though. So hopefully this will eliminate some of the bad Reinhardts out there and let them understand the game a little bit better. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is his hit points and shield. Reinhardt has a total of 500 overall hit points. Now, of those 500, 200 of them are armor points. And the reason why the armor points are important is because armor reduces the damage taken by half, up to 5 points of damage. So if you're taking 10 points of damage, you're only going to be taking 5. So you just have to particularly be careful with heroes that can generate more than 10 points of damage. Next, we're going to look at all three of Reinhardt's abilities, and they'll be a little bit lengthy in each discussion, and it may not cover all tips, but I'll try to cover most tips with it. The first thing that we're going to look at is Reinhardt's shield. Reinhardt's shield is the #1 reason why he's preferred over all tanks. It can take 2,000 damage. That's the equivalent of 10 Genjis. The problem is that a lot of Reinhardts don't understand how to balance using the shield and when to attack. Now, that's a pretty complex topic. But let's just stick with the basics with the shield. On control points, you want to pretty much try to keep your shield up at all times. However, in the beginning, you probably want to take a lot of damage, except for if there's a Zenyatta. You need to be careful with that. Now, the reason why that you want to take a lot of damage in the beginning, you don't want to block too much damage, because if you do, your Mercy or your healers aren't going to get their ultimates, and they need to get their ultimates as soon as possible. Don't worry about the enemy attacking you, as long as you're at the pinch point, which is the #1 spots that Reinhardt should post up. If you don't post up at pinch points, you're a bad Reinhardt. I can tell you that right now, for the most part. There are a couple maps that you don't want to do that. However, you want them to be able to get their ultimates as fast as possible, because if you die, you can get a res right away and support your team again. But again, keep in mind that you definitely want to make sure that you are balancing that and protecting your teammates, because they're also going to be taking damage, and they need to feel comfortable knowing that you're going to keep that shield up and they can go behind you and help try to fight the enemy team off. Again, this is where it's important, because Reinhardt's expecting his teammates to be behind him and helping destroy these people. And if your team's not behind you pushing that damage out, your shield's going to drop. You got to be able to make them flank. You got to make them run around. You got to make them change their game up. But if you die too quickly, that means that your team doesn't have enough team damage going to the front line in order to make these characters stop shooting at Reinhardt. The other important piece to Reinhardt's shield is to make sure that you're blocking ultimates as Reinhardt's. That's super important. As a Reinhardt, you should be blocking other Earth Shatters. D.Va's ultimate, the #1 scary ultimate in the damn game. I mean, it's literally a game changer. That's the Reinhardt's responsibility to get in front of the D.Va's ultimate. Now, that being said, in the same token, Reinhardt can't cover everybody and know where everybody's supposed to be at. All he can do is try to put his shield in between the team and the ultimate for the majority of the people. Everybody else is responsible for getting behind the shield and making sure that you run behind it. Don't depend on the Reinhardt too much for that, guys. That's actually the team's fault. So, again, when D.Va's ultimate pops off, make sure you're getting behind the Reinhardt shield. There are instances for sure where the Reinhardt makes some silly moves that should have just... It's hard to explain it, but he should have had the block. But for the most part, guys, as a team, make sure you run behind the shield. You should be there anyways. Now let's take a look at Reinhardt's hammer. Reinhardt's hammer has a 180-degree motion, and it will also knock the enemies around. And the reason why it's important to understand his hammer. Reinhardt gets 5 points or 5% I should say, 5% of his Earth Shatter every time that he hits an enemy. So if you have 6 enemies in front of you and you hit all 6 in one swing, that's going to be 30% of your ultimate in one swing alone. So Reinhardt is known to be able to get his ultimate faster than most other heroes. The difference I see between a good Reinhardt and a bad Reinhardt is a good Reinhardt will know when to swing. A bad Reinhardt will either swing too much or be too defensive. And you have to know when to balance those. And in order to be able to be a semi-aggressive Reinhardt, which is what most team members want, you have to have a good Mercy with you. Now my Mercy will do my callouts for me. I don't know when to go swing. My Mercy will tell me when to go swing. When she starts healing me and she says, go ahead and go, I've got you, that tells me that I know that I've got healing dedicated to me. So I'm going to go to the front line to smash as many people as I can. Now, am I looking to kill people? No. I'm looking to try to do as much damage as I can, and hopefully my team members behind me will give me that additional support and focus on who I'm swinging on. And this is why earlier we said that you have to have a good team that knows how to support Reinhardt, or your Reinhardt's going to be a crappy player. Alright, now let's take a look at Reinhardt's offensive abilities. And one of the offensive abilities is called Fire Strike. Fire Strike is really important to Reinhardt because it's his only long-range attack. Now, the reason why it's important to Reinhardt gets 10% of his ultimate for each Fire Strike that lands. And that could be in one swing. So if I hit all 6 enemies in one shot, I get 60% of my Earth Shatter right from the get-go, just by hitting all 6 enemies in a straight line. That's why you'll see a lot of Reinhardts run up to the main entranceways whenever the game first starts and launch a Fire Strike and run back. Unfortunately, what you see is a lot of teammates go, oh, well, this is where we're going to hold the line. And that's just not the case. Reinhardt will usually just run up there when the doors open, throw the Fire Strike out, and run back to base. Hopefully, he's looking to get, on average, 10 to 20%. He's looking to just be able to hit 2 enemies at a time. That's about probably the most that you're going to hit on average. So, but unfortunately, when the team runs up, the Reinhardt runs away, and the rest of the team doesn't realize what the hell's going on. Well, that's because they don't understand what the Reinhardt's doing, and that's pretty much all he's doing. So, the Fire Strike's pretty simple overall. You just launch it every time that it pops up. Obviously, you want to try to take out an enemy that's running away, trying to get some health back. That's probably one of the most important usages for it. However, keep in mind, again, if you catch 2 or 3 enemies on a line, go ahead and use it. That's going to give you 30% if you hit all 3 of them. So that's about it with the Fire Strike. I know a lot of people after using Earth Shatter like to Fire Strike down and then start swinging. Typically you'll see this whenever there are a bunch of enemies in a line on the ground after an Earth Shatter, and they're just basically trying to do as much damage as possible in as short amount of time as possible. The Reinhardt charge. What to say about this? You can quickly identify a crappy Reinhardt player by the way he charges. A bad Reinhardt will use the charge every time it's available, and that's not a good thing. It's a playmaking move, and what we mean by that is it's there when an opportunity is available. You should use it to create an opening. Sometimes creating that opening is self-sacrificing. I don't mind it dies sometimes. I try not to. However, if the reward is better than the risk, then by all means I go for it. So the move can kill the majority of the players by one single pin. It's definitely nice to use on a Zenny or a Mercy, but you're not going to get too many of those opportunities because those people should be behind enemy lines, and usually you're getting lucky by doing so. Now, when should you pin? So this becomes it's very hard to explain this. Pinning should only occur when you're not going to be pushing yourself in too deep into enemy lines. Now, because the minute that you go behind enemy lines, you're going to get murdered. So, for example here, on this board here, on King's Row, I try to bait a Reinhardt to come after me, because he's looking to create that opportunity. And once he comes at me, I'm hoping to dodge that pin. And usually that will put him behind the 2 walls. Once he's behind the 2 walls, my teammates should take care of him very quickly. And at that point in time, what you can start doing is running out and killing a lot of the opposing team members around the corners and around the walls. And you're trying to stagger them at that point to get their team to come running in at you one by one. A lot of people like to do that. So pinning is a calculated risk. It is the most risky move that he has, but it's also the most rewarding one. on offense, one of my number one, especially at the beginning like here, one of my number one goals is to pin another Reinhardt. But by doing so, I expect my team to be able to take that Reinhardt out because I need help doing it. More than likely, he's going to be getting a bunch of heals, so you got to have a concentration of firepower on him. Once the Reinhardt's dead, even if I die, I can run from here back to that point in just a few seconds. I'll beat the other Reinhardt back, and by that time, hopefully my team's cleaned up a lot of the other players because they have no defensive capabilities at that point. So, again, pinning is important, but it is also risky. So be very cautious about who you pin and when you pin. Alright, let's talk about Earthshatter. Earthshatter is one of Reinhardt's most important weapons in his arsenal. He gains his ultimate really quickly with all the other tips that I just kind of gave you all. So, what Earthshatter does, it's a conal AoE attack, and it will drop any enemies in front of you that get hit by it. Now, there's a couple exceptions, and those being Reinhardt can neutralize Earthshatter, and anybody behind a shield of Zarya will not be knocked to the ground. Now, once those enemies are down from Earthshatter, I think a lot of mistakes, and we can debate this if you guys want to, and a lot of mistakes that are made by a Reinhardt player is a Reinhardt player will start smashing the people in front of him that are laid down. Well, those people tend to be the tanks. Now, if I knock a Mercy down with Earthshatter, she's the number one person I'm going to go for. And the reason being is once you take out the support, tanks are useless. They really are. Once support's gone, tanks suck. Now, again, don't focus on the people in the front when you knock Reinhardt, when Reinhardt uses Earthshatter. Let your teammates do that. That's their job. When you use Earthshatter, there should be all kinds of firepower coming from behind you. And they should be focused on the tanks and the people in the front while you run to the back taking out the support teams. Now that we've discussed Reinhardt and all of his abilities, let's do a quick recap. Always try to hold choke points with Reinhardt. Any large areas are a poor area for Reinhardt to try to defend. There's too many places for the enemy to go. It confuses your Reinhardt. He has to turn around. He starts herka-jerking a lot. And he doesn't know who to support and who to cover because there's too much for him to do. Try to keep your shield up most of the time. However, know when to balance that. Know when to put it down. If you're not taking a lot of enemy fire and you've got about 50% of your shield, put it down. Let it start recharging. Let your Mercy or Lucio or Zenyatta start getting some points by healing you. Let them build their ultimates up. Don't be a completely defensive Reinhardt, but also don't be a aggressive Reinhardt. Both will get you killed. You need to be semi-aggressive. You got to balance that. Guys, I cannot express to you how important it is as a Reinhardt to know how to balance that. Use your abilities wisely. Remember, Fire Strike all the time. Charging only when necessary or when there's a high reward versus risk. Remember to use Earthshatter. Try to make sure that there's not a shield to prevent it or block it. And make sure that you try to get as many enemy team members as possible within a group. And also remember to head to the back line and take out the supports that you knock down. Try not to go for the tanks. Let your team take care of them. Alright everybody, that's all I have for the tutorial. Leave a like and a comment. Hit that subscribe button for me. Guys, definitely comment on the video below. I want to hear your guys' thoughts and processes and what you guys feel is good and what you feel is not. You know, maybe there's something I didn't touch base you would like to know about. I'll openly discuss anything that I can with y'all. So, appreciate y'all watching the video. Have a great day.